Okay, Lassie Farm here. I have a short story for real this time. Annie Proulx, of course, from her collection of stories called Bad Dirt. This is called The Summer of the Hot Tubs. And who needs good light for a video? Nobody's watching this anyways, so it don't really matter. And I've got this nice yard light. Got my Bacardi Gold. This was going to be for the mailman, but he keeps fucking up, so I'm going to drink it. He can go screw himself. Now, Mac, come on. Help me out, Mac. Elk Tooth, Wyoming has little going for it beyond the junkyard, despite a population of nearly 80 people. If you want a fancy dinner or batteries or tampons, you drive 44 miles down Dog Ear Creek until you hit Sac. And there are 2 stores and a garage. But Elk Tooth has its attractions. The 3 bars, Silvertip, the Pee-wee, and Muddy's Hole. The old tradition of pioneer wayside eating houses, road ranches, hangs on as well. There's one of these north of town which serves supper for $3, although there is no menu choice, and Mrs. Polidora uses paper plates, unsatisfactory if you like to hear your fork clink. Paper plates or not, Mrs. Polidora will put a platter of elk steaks on the table, flanked by a big green bowl of mashed potatoes, a pitcher of milk gravy, and a saucer of chokecherry jelly. Somehow, she can make that elk last all year. In Elk Tooth, everyone tries to be a character, and with some success. There's little more to it than being broke, proud, ingenious, and setting your heels against civilized society's pull. Mrs. Polidora's steady customer is Willie Hewson, who fixes trucks and lawnmowers in a minimal way. He was born and raised in Elk Tooth, but for years lived in distant cities in distant states, working as a mechanic for United Airlines. When questioned why he left a lucrative job to return to Elk Tooth, he says, "I couldn't take it no more. What it is, no one asks, for everyone in Wyoming knows of the red hell that lies beyond the state's borders. He lives with a tan dog he calls Igor." Willie Hewson has neither workshop nor garage, but tinkers in the narrow dirt run in front of his trailer. If the job is a big truck, he parks it in the road and lies under it after putting up a folding sign at the curve. The sign says, "Sand her down," which is Willie's way of saying, "Go slow, mechanic in the road." Igor, seeing Willie lying in the road, follows his example and has been hit twice. Sometimes in a burst of energy, Willie continues to work on a vehicle after the problem is repaired, putting in salvaged hoses, running wires to buttons and switches. Deb Sipple, a character himself, once drove away in his 1983 Toyota pickup with a freshly flushed radiator and 11 toggle switches on the dashboard that activated nothing. Mrs. Strawbird got her Explorer back with an enormous fixed spotlight on top that her husband said would do very well for spotting owls at night or enemy aircraft, if it hadn't been that the horn blew every time they switched on the beam. Customers pay what they feel the work is worth. Little that Willie Hewson fixes runs longer than 5 days or 50 miles, whichever comes first, but the general feeling is that sometimes that is all you need. It'll hold together long enough to get to Sac and the real garage. At one time, Willie Hewson had started to build a garage onto the side of his trailer and framed it out with lean-to poles stolen from the Forest Service, buck fences, a pole here, another there. He nailed on 4 boards, selected randomly from his pile of warped lumber, then quit. It is a point of pride in Elktooth to quit whenever and whatever needs quittin'. If Willie Hewson stops working on a lawnmower or ski-mobile or truck at a crucial time, it is the owner's tough luck. Nothing can bring him back to something he's quit. Lassie, shush. You're killing me. He takes his time setting to work, and some vehicles sit in front of the trailer for months before he lifts their hood. Remember bartender Amanda Gribb, who has once or twice 86'd Willie from the Pee-wee, waited 17 weeks for her 1956 Chevy truck and worked up a grudge while she waited. She had taken it to him in the autumn. It was a spring day when she found a grimy postcard in her mailbox. It said, "Fixed, come get it." She got a lift out to the trailer with Sven Polidora, a little drunk, but on his way home. The truck stood forlorn with one wheel in the ditch. She called Willie's name, but there was no answer. She shrugged and got in the truck. There was a note on the seat, "Leave money in mailbox." She turned on the ignition first. No point in leaving money if it still didn't run. And 2 tremendous explosions shook the vehicles. Fire spurted out of the back end of the truck. The engine died. She looked in the rearview mirror and saw dozens of small burning objects scattered on Willie Hewson's grass, setting that on fire. She got out. Once she got beyond the idea of a terrorist attack, the nuggets of fire looked familiar. 1 or 2 that had escaped ignition were plainly dog kibble. She scooped up the smoldering lumps with a tin can lying in the yard. She guessed that during the winter some enterprising mouse had stolen dog food from Igor's dish and packed it away in the tailpipe of the truck. She put the smoking can in Willie's mailbox along with a nickel, restarted the truck, and drove back to town, trailing a stream of sparks and some coarse language. Last summer, a kind of madness swept through Elktooth, a passion for outdoor hot tubs. No one, of course, bought one. All of them were fashioned from scrap metal, old stock tanks, and odds and ends found at Donald's Rawhide Cowboy Junkyard. The more fastidious built plank board walks around the tub perimeters to keep dirt and cactus spines out of the water. In a fuel pinch, sections of the walk could be tossed into the firebox. All the hot tubs were heated by wood stoves. Willie Hewson, who sets his heels not only against the outside world but against Elktooth's social leaders, was a holdout, full of scorn for outdoor bathing. "If I want to soak my ass, I'll drive up to Thermopolis and its famed hot springs was 240 miles distant from Elktooth and clogged with tourists. A willingness to go there, said Deb, showed how Willie's mind had been damaged by out-of-state residents. "Thing is," said Deb, "I've seen his expression when he was looking at my hot tub. He'd give his left nut have one just like it. Near the end of the summer, Willie Hewson visited his grandmother on the old family ranch near Lingle, where the Hewsons had run cows since 1872. Foraging through an equipment shed, he came across an object that screamed, "Hot tub." Better than hot tub, it screamed weird and unique hot tub, unlike and better than any other. With the help of his uncle, Doug, and two of Doug's boys, Pliers and Rammy, he got it into Willie's truck. He started back to Elktooth, singing Wrong-Eyed Jesus along with Jim White. His uncle chased after him for 6 miles, pulled abreast, and shouted into the rushing wind, "Don't you want the tripod?" "Hell yes, I only got the one engine hoist, and I need a hoist engines." Back in Elktooth, he made an effort to put his prize in a secluded spot, but given the nature of his property, a narrow strip of ground between a sheer cliff and the road, crowded with the house trailer, the lumber piles, 7 or 8 defunct trucks for parts, the 4-board garage, the doghouse, a dozen dead lawnmowers, a pile of stone, another of gravel, and a single young cottonwood tree, there was no secluded spot. "Fuck 'em," said Willie Hewson. He offloaded the enormous inch-thick cast-iron pot 3 feet across and last used in 1912 by some unknown biscuit hurler in a long-ago fall roundup. He jimmied it into place near the cottonwood, about 5 feet from the road. It swayed ponderously from the massive tripod chain. After a search, Willie found 2 cut lengths of hose, taped them together. The tape held long enough to fill the kettle halfway, which he thought, figuring displacement would be about right. A flotsam of mouse droppings, straw, chaff, and rust particles floated to the surface. Adhering to the bottom was a crust of 90-year-old dried son-of-a-bitch stew. He split a few sticks of kindling, started a fire beneath the pot with a curl of tar paper, added wood. Smoke rose. While he waited for the water to heat, he practiced shooting at the wasp nest in the cottonwood with his .22 pistol. At last, steam rose from the kettle. There was a heavy and peculiar smell. He raked the coals and smoking wood out from under the pot and stripped down, draping his clothes over the projecting ends of the boards in the nearby lumber pile. The remnant of the son-of-a-bitch stew, the size of a cow pie, had loosened from the bottom and floated on top of the water. He scooped it out with his hand and sent it flying into the road. The water in the tub was plenty hot. He put in 1 foot, then the other. The water rose above his knees. The water was very hot, but not as hot as the iron bottom of the pot, which roasted the soles of his feet. He got out, danced in the cool dirt, pulled on his boots. Now the boots were full of grit. He felt the rim of the pot. It was warm, but not searing. He decided on a different entry trajectory and lowered himself until his more tender parts hung over the water, and there he paused. Suspended, and Mr. and Mrs. Ulysses Bird, brother and sister-in-law of Straw Bird, drove slowly by. Mrs. Bird started to wave, looked again, thought better of it. Ulysses Bird walked into the Pee Wee bar and said, "God damn, we just seen something." Shh. Shh. Guys. Willie Hewson got himself a cannibal pot, a hot tub. He looked like a missionary was going to get boiled. He described the tub, the closeness of it to the road, the agonized expression on Willie's face as he sat hastily in the water, Mrs. Bird's expressions and exclamations as she thought of how she had almost waved. Amanda Gribb, who was tending bar, listened closely. "Hey," she said in her loud bartender voice, "get on back there with this." She opened the refrigerator, took out a package of frozen corn, a half-empty jar of maraschino cherries, foraged in the cupboard for a can of chili powder. "Drop these in his damn cannibal hot tub. If he's going to cook himself, let's get some flavor in there. He'll come with you. Hell, I'll come with you. Shake that chili where it'll do some good." They went as quickly as they could, but Willie Hewson was gone, clothes, gravelly boots, and all. The pot steamed, the water was still hot, and in it floated a wasp's nest. A few puzzled wasps flew around the cottonwood tree. There were wet footprints in the dust. There was no sense in wasting the chili, corn, and cherries. If Willie wasn't in his soup pot, there would probably be another time. As they turned to leave, Ulysses Strawbird stepped on the son of a bitch stew, which under the influence of the hot water had metamorphosed into a black jellyfish. It clung to his boot like tar. He scraped it off with a stick, got the stick pronged into it, and held it up. It swung, glistening. "Seems like it's fresh, whatever it is," he said. "It got the right shape, but I doubt it ever came out of the south end of a cow. Looks more like a platypus afterbirth." Amanda Gribb suddenly took the stick from his hand and flipped the blob into the hot tub. "There, let him find that in his cannibal pot." Over the weeks, the drought dried up the water in the cannibal hot tub, and once again, the son of a bitch stew lies dormant at the bottom. It was only last month that Willie Hewson reappeared driving a 1949 Land Rover and with a non-English-speaking Tibetan girlfriend at his side, two items which earned him towering status points in the Elk-Tooth eccentricity race. He didn't even glance at the cannibal pot. He had quit that. Humac. So let's try this. Let's try this son of a bitch. Look at my rabbit while I open the Bacardi with two hands. Should use a tripod, but those are just a pain in the ass. Hey, Oscar. Well, Mr. Mailman, here's to you. Do your job. Ooh, that is nice. Warms you up. Ooh, I hear coyotes. But they're a long ways away, and they ain't coming around here. Not with these dogs. Humac.